What's going on, everyone? I'm just a typical, average American, here today to react and learn about Norway's oldest book. So as an American, I don't know much about Norwegian history. So this topic sounded very interesting to me. We're going to take a look at the oldest book in all of Norway. It's called the Kvikne Psaltery, if I'm pronouncing this correctly. It's held in the National Library of Norway. And I am very, very curious to see what this book is like, what kind of secrets it holds, and what it can teach me about Norway and Norwegian culture. So with that being said, let's take a look.
And so this one here, what makes this so special?
This is, I like to say, actually the jewel of our collection.
Oh.
And it looks so small and innocent, but it's really a spectacular object.
Oh my God. Look at this thing. This is a book? It looks pretty cool though. I don't even understand what this is made out of. And it's got all these weird symbols carved into it. What are these symbols? Is this like some kind of old Norwegian symbols or language? Or I don't even understand what I'm looking at, but it looks cool.
And this is because this is one of Norway's oldest books that we know of. And it is the oldest binding that we have in Norway.
What is this made out of? Is this cover made out of wood? That is amazing that they were able to find this. I'm really curious to find out what is in this book. What is this book about? Oldest book in Norway.
How old?
It's about 1150, 1200. It's difficult to date it exactly, but about that time.
This is almost 1,000 years old. This book is almost 1,000 years old. A Norwegian wrote this book 1,000 years ago. Think about that. That's crazy.
Right. And of course, this book's contents are in Latin.
Oh.
And what are the contents?
Latin. It's in Latin. Latin? Were people in Norway writing in Latin? I didn't know that.
This is what we call a psalter, which are the psalms from the Bible. And this was used in everyday life for the people. They sort of structured their week around it, and one day they read one part, the next day they read another part.
I guess that makes sense. This is a religious book. This is like a Bible. I didn't know that was part of Norwegian history. Did a Norwegian own this book? Or is this just a book that was found in Norway? Maybe we don't even know who owned this book.
Yeah.
Whose possession would this have been in?
Well, it's called the Kvikne Psalter, which means that it belonged to the Kvikne church.
Oh.
It was later found in an archive after a priester, actually. So he had it and he had used it. But of course, there is a long story of provenance that we don't know about.
What is the Kvikne church? Is that Norwegian? It sounds Norwegian. I don't speak Norwegian, but Kvikne, maybe, you know what I'm thinking of in my mind? I'm thinking of, that sounds really, really similar to Kvik Lunch, the candy. This is the Kvikne church. Is that a Norwegian church or religion or?
Right, sure. And tell us a little bit about this cover.
Yeah.
Here, the wooden cover, what we're looking at. There's some writing, some of which looks familiar and some not so familiar.
This binding is made out of wood.
Yeah.
We don't know exactly what kind of wood because that has not been tested, but we assume it is oak.
Okay.
And you see that there is some text. And the Interesting
Yeah.
thing is that the language of these two little texts that you see is Old Norse.
Old Norse. I was wondering if this is Norwegian language written on here, but it's symbols. I've never seen this before. Norway obviously uses like a standard alphabet now. This is Old Norse. That is cool.
But it is written one part in Latin letters and one part in runes and some Latin
Runes.
letters.
Which is a fascinating combination. I mean, part of what's so fascinating about it to me is that this is still a period when you're finding objects that are entirely in runic writing. It's
Really?
also a period.
Runic writing. Do Norwegians learn about this kind of stuff? Old Norse, runic writing, or have you ever heard of this book? Or I've never heard of any of this stuff.
Where the Roman alphabet is fairly new to Scandinavia.
Huh.
But it's so strange to me and so thought-provoking to see someone who has competence enough in both to kind of code switch alphabets. Right? That's, to me, that actually speaks to high competence in both. So who's the person who's so competent in both?
Who wrote this book? That is the question. It's in Latin and Norse runic letters.
And what impels you to write in both on here?
Yeah.
Because we see, and I'll have a close up on the screen of this, but we see some Latin writing at the very bottom, where the word salteri is pretty readable,
Okay.
and I think fikna at the top. Is that right?
Vigna.
Along the bottom.
Not entirely.
Okay.
Shall I tell you, or you want to try to?
If I try it right now, I'm going to knock the camera over. So probably just tell me.
Okay. No, the Latin letters says that Herren lesa saltere. So here the Psalter was read.
Oh, okay.
This is where the Psalter was read.
So again, this was like a religious scripture in Old Runic or Norse and Latin. Very interesting history to this book.
And then you have above that what looks like a very large rune U with a tail on it. I guess it could be a bind rune, but I don't know what the combining rune would be to put that.
That's pretty cool. Like, I don't know. I assume Norwegians are not taught how to read Old Norse runic or runic letters like this, or are you? In like history class, or because I've never seen letters like this in my whole life.
That tail on the U. Do we know what that's for or what that means?
No, we don't. We know the other text that is there, what that means.
Okay.
Right, which I, of course, read fluently immediately.
Yes, you did. I can prove that.
As Kvikna Almek, Kvikna Owensby, that's untrue. I could read the Kvik, and then it starts off, I guess the lines are deeper carved to start with, and then it gets shallower.
Looks like it.
I mean, to me, it looks like this book is in very rough shape. It looks like they carved the symbols into it with like a knife or a dagger, and somewhere along the line it has a whole bunch of scratches and stuff on it. It's hard to even see what's on this.
Yeah, but I read the Kvik, and then I'm like, I don't know.
Huh.
And of course we have the 3 dots used to separate words,
Exactly.
which is, it speaks to how different these writing traditions are.
Huh.
Because, of course, in Roman writing, you use spaces between words. But in runic writing, you almost never see those spaces, but you do see the dots. So this is
Runic writing. That sounds like a video game or something. Runic writing? I had no idea this like existed in real life.
someone who's, again, fully inhabiting both of these writing traditions. Right?
If it is the same person.
True,
Huh.
true.
We don't know.
And I wonder about that big runic U. I wonder if is that the initials of an owner?
So, I mean, basically, from what they're saying, they really have no idea, like about the origins of this book. Norway's oldest book, shrouded in mystery. It's a religious book. They have no idea who wrote it. Interesting that the person who made this book probably was educated in both runic and Latin at the same time. Some kind of genius, some kind of Norwegian genius wrote this book.
Could be.
You know,
Could be.
someone named Vermunder or Bestein or something.
Huh.
Ulver even, right? That would
Could
use
be.
the U.
Could be.
Okay.
We don't know, unfortunately.
We don't
And
know.
what else can you tell us about the binding? I can see, what, is this leather that's
Yeah.
attaching
Yeah.
the two halves of the cover?
And you can see what we do here in the exhibition is that we turn the material around so that it is not exposed to so much light.
That's true. You know, I just realized this is like in the Museum of Norway at an exhibition. That's really cool that you can just go and see this book in real life. Like it's out on display. That's really nice.
And on the other side, you can see that there has been some sort of lock on it that has kept the whole thing together. But then you would
lock.
have to go behind the manuscript and look from the downstairs. But that has
Like this book, seriously, the more I think about it, they have it like in this amazing glass container, protected. This is the oldest book in Norway, 1,000 years old. That's crazy. It has a lock on it? Like you could actually lock the book?
been probably, we are not quite sure, but we see that there has been taken out quite a lot from this manuscript and put back in, and other pages have been put in, so it's sort of a collection of text that has been used, and they have put in what they want to use, and really an object of everyday use, so to
Right.
speak.
Right.
Oh, that's interesting. It's so funny because it's so precious to us as this old piece of history, this artifact. But at the time, this is just like what? It's just a book. It's just like whatever, like used every day, thrown around. They took pages in and out of it. That's so funny how that works. Like it used to be just like whatever. And now it's like this precious thing. It's like if you have a piece of paper, like a, I don't know, like an electric bill, and they found that in 1,000 years from now, they'd be like, oh my gosh, look at this ancient artifact. It's just like, it's just like your electrical bill.
In profound contrast to the laws of Magnus, the lawmender, right back here in a 1300s manuscript,
Ah.
obviously meant for display.
Oh, wow.
Or, and
Holy cow. This is a different book. This is like a work of art.
Johanna Katrin is pointing this out, we have this edition of Snorre Sturluson's Heimskringla, translated into Norwegian,
Yes.
for an audience about 100 years ago, right?
Right.
And these used to be in so many homes, and it's.
Wow.
She pointed out what an interesting contrast this is, right? Real medieval, a real medieval text used by real medieval people, and a medieval text meant for kind of modern purposes.
So this book was found in many, many people's houses. That makes it even more interesting to me. This was found in like a bunch of people's houses, like all over Norway. If you wanted this religious book, like it was common.
Including just display. Arguably the Snorri book is prettier, but this is such a realer part of the world in which, of course,
Yes.
Snorri lived.
Yes,
That's true.
exactly.
Right up to the Latin used in the church.
Exactly.
And the thing is, what I think is so interesting is that in this one object, we have a sort of moment in time of the linguistic diversity that was in our country at that time.
Of course.
Because what we
Is that true? In Norway? In Norway? Were people speaking Latin? And Old Norse or whatever the Norwegian language was?
like to say is that we got away with the Latin very early, much earlier than Denmark and Sweden, and that we used the vernacular in religious settings. And to a certain degree, that is true. But this also showed what an important role Latin still had in our society.
Oh, Norway was really, really quick to get away from Latin, actually. I didn't know that.
And you see all of them. You see Old Norse, you see the Latin, you see Latin letters, you see runes, all in just one little object.
Yeah. It really is a time capsule.
It is.
Well, thank you.
Wow. That's fascinating. This is like just sitting down and enjoying a piece of Norwegian history. Like, pretty well preserved. I mean, it's beat up, but this is actually quite enjoyable for me. This was by Jackson Crawford. I gotta give this a like. That was really cool. Like, I mean, the title really drew me in. Norway's oldest book. 1,000 years old. This is just like a book found all over Norway, important part of Norwegian history. And I don't know, it's just really cool to see it and get a little insight into Norwegian history for me. So that was cool. I quite enjoyed this. Anyway, if you enjoyed this as well, feel free to give this video a like or leave a comment with your thoughts on the oldest book in Norway. And if you're interested in more videos like this, me reacting to Norway and Norwegian culture, feel free to subscribe for more. And until then, thanks for watching, and see you next time.